Mini episode 1349 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by Sportsology, delivering unconventional columns and webcasts about sports, TV, music, movies, and more. Follow them on the web at sportsology.com.
The FDH Lounge. You want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to mini episode 1349 of the FDH Lounge. This is FDH Managing Partner Rick Morris, and I have back on with us here our golf editor, Mr. Flatstick Tom Denk. It's been a while since we've had him on the show, certainly too long, and glad to get to rectify that today. The occasion is Phil Mickelson becoming the oldest ever to win a major, the PGA Championship, down in South Carolina this past Sunday. And what a thrilling, Happy Gilmore-esque scene it was on the 18th hole when we got to see that play out, and true history all the way around. Phil Mickelson, I can even say, with our FDH draft board here, because of course Tom and I are competitors in our golf league this year, our Fantasy Experts Golf League, and I think we are second and third place as we speak right now. Phil Mickelson was undrafted this year in our league. That goes to show you the esteem that he had been held in at this point after a couple of disappointing seasons. But he rallies, he hangs on to win the big one, and who better to turn to for reaction than our own Tom Denk. Tom, thanks for being on today, buddy. Good to talk to you.
Oh, my pleasure, Ricky. Yeah, I remember during the draft, I was sitting there. I was waiting to see which guy would just throw down a late round pick on Phil, and it never happened. I got to admit, I was a little shocked and a little sad, but I understood. But he proved everybody wrong. It was great.
He did. He made history, and again, in reviewing the numbers from this past weekend here, of course, he was close on the board after Thursday, made his move on Friday, 5 birdies over the last 9 holes to take the lead after 36. And to become the 6th player to hold the lead in a major championship in 4 different decades. And it was just a matter of holding on from there. On Saturday, somewhat of a tougher back 9, but he held on. And then on Sunday, going through an entire range of events, basically, there were some times where it looked like Koepka was maybe going to catch him earlier on the back 9, and then Phil looked like he was pulling away. It tightened up again. So a real roller coaster, but in the end, the instincts of a champion are enough there to get him major number 6.
Yeah, what I liked was that on, like you said, after Friday, he had the lead, and then he had to sit there, the later tee times, last final groups, Saturday, Sunday. Now for him, a guy like Mickelson, he likes having all that pressure, all that conundrum around him going on. So a lot of the, sometimes when you see someone come and win where they haven't in a while, it's they got hit hot really late Saturday, and then they only had to play maybe one round, in the heat of the final groupings. Whereas he did it all, he finished off Friday, then Saturday, Sunday. Very similar, I believe, when Tom Watson almost won when he lost to Stuart Sink. I believe Tom was leading after day 1, and he led. He basically had a share of the lead until he lost it in the playoff. So for Phil to hang on was definitely quite an accomplishment. Now, one thing with the older players, they do love the late afternoon tee times because it gives them a chance to do really a full stretching program, get these guys limbered up. A lot of the older guys, they're not a big fan of the real early times, even though, the greens are fresh and the crowds are minor. The guys that have been on tour a lot, they do like those later times for that reason. So it was crazy. There was so much going on with him, and a lot of little details all up in the air.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Tom Watson in 09, because that's one of those things where, and I think, again, this is just my capacity for being a salty person, that I've never forgiven Stuart Sink for robbing us of that moment, because it would have been really, really badass to see Tom Watson take the British Open back in '09, and it didn't happen. And again, that's the one near miss I think that we all remember. We remember, of course, the successful times of somebody later in their career getting it done. Tiger Woods didn't end up breaking any records, winning one at his age with the Masters in 2019, but it was very, very memorable nonetheless. Obviously, for me, I had him on my fantasy golf team that year, so I was loving that. And then, of course, Nicklaus in '86 at the Masters, and as I was telling you off air, kind of ironic that I happened to be at the same place and to glimpse Jack Nicklaus this past weekend down in the Atlanta area. We were both down there for the same occasion, and so I know he was probably in the Atlanta area on Sunday night when he cut that congratulatory Twitter video for Mickelson. But yeah, this is one that we're going to remember. Like I said, Watson's the outlier because it's the near miss that we remember, but it tends to be, that was Nicklaus's signature moment later in his career. Tiger's already had what looks like it'll probably be his only one with the way that his leg got mangled in this car accident this year. Time will tell. And for Mickelson, again, we'll have to see if he can do a follow-up to this one. But certainly this is, when you look at the back nine, if you will, of Phil's career, certainly his signature moment.
Yeah, now, so just kind of putting them all on the line here. Now, Nicklaus, 46.
Mm-hmm.
When he was 46 and won in '86, Paul Azinger had a good line that said, when he was 46, everybody still wanted to have hit it like Jack.
Mm-hmm.
He was really struggling with the putter. He was trying these new McGregor putters every other month. Jack really did some bad things to his career with the merchandise he chose, because he really tried to push the McGregor line and played some arguably very inferior putters with it. But I mean, he was still striping it. He just couldn't really get it done with the putters. Fortunately, his company redesigned a few of the old Augusta greens and took some of the severe slopes out. So that winter, he actually had done quite a bit of practicing on some of the Augusta greens as they redid them. So, but that was an amazing win, and obviously it held up as the oldest. Then you go over to Watson. His was, to me, he was 58, and I mean I can't even get over that one. To me, that to me is the greatest all-time runner-up finish I've ever seen.
Agree.
I mean, is just insane. And then people forget Greg Norman came back that next year.
Yes.
He was dating Chris Evert for a while. His golf production was down. There weren't being a lot of courses made, so he kind of just said, you know what, I'm going to get back out and play a little bit. And he came out there until he fell apart with about, I think, on the back nine.
Right.
So they were there, but he was, I think he was 52 or 53 at the time. He had a good look at it. And the way he had played that week, that was not a fluke run. He was really striping the ball well.
Right.
And then that kind of gets us over to now with Phil. Now, Phil had won, I'm trying to remember, he had won, after the British Open, then he had a little bit, but then he won that tournament at Pebble Beach. And I kind of thought that, that was going to be the last one. He was playing good, but quite often you see some of these elite players, their last win is usually a pretty elite course. Kind of just, it's that little exclamation mark. And I thought, you know what, that wouldn't be the end of the world if that was his last win. I think he actually may have gotten hot and won one in Phoenix, but, he really kind of, after that British Open, there really wasn't a lot left. He had really nothing to prove. I mean, he'd already gotten to 6 majors. The list of guys with 3 majors is really, really minor. I mean, and he'll have the asterisk for, messing up the U.S. Open where he tripled the final hole. So just for being, that age and still kind of getting after it, I heard this week on the radio that he had finished 2 weeks before the PGA. He played a senior tour event and finished 20th. Okay? And he said he was still playing good at the time.
Yeah. So
to think that, one, he's kind of dabbling on both tours, which actually is good for him. It limits the travel because, his arthritic condition, even though he's taking pills, those are still some serious medications that,
right.
you're not going hard at the gym and stuff the way, you know, these younger guys do.
Right.
But then, too, I'm kind of amazed, you know, think about it, that there's 20 guys week in and week out that could just say, you know what, take that, Mickelson. So the joke was that these guys always say they're prepping for the senior tour. And those guys, although old, are still extremely sick with their games. It's pretty funny, though, that, you know, you would think that a guy that just won the PGA would have no problem, like, dusting off the senior tour week in and week out, when in fact, you know, still grinding for top 20s on the senior tour. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, too. It's the same thing with the PBA. Once the guys turn 50, the tour, the competition is much harder. I mean, you go out on the PBA tour post-50, and you're competing with Pete Weber, among other guys. So, yeah, it's, you know, the depth out there, really, on both tours post-50, I think is much better than it used to be. And it's interesting to me, as I look at this in a historical context and in a historical context of talking about things with you. There was a segment we did many years ago on the show where we were looking at, this was kind of early on, I think, in the post-Tiger Woods generation, the guys coming up in his wake, and looking at them there, and all the rosy things we were forecasting, the potential Tiger-esque careers for McIlroy and Spieth, among others. Matsuyama, who actually, I mean, just getting his first Masters win this year, his first major, so you count him among them. But these guys who, and subsequent to that, you have Justin Thomas coming along, and a couple of these guys. Koepka's got a couple of majors, and it's a thing now where I just found myself struck in looking at this here this weekend, seeing Mickelson get to 6. That 6 seems to be sort of a nice cutoff point here. Once you have made it to that point, you really sort of separate out from the guys that you can count the majors on one hand. And it's a thing where I think it would be more accurate, I think, to start comparing some of the career trajectories of some of these guys, maybe more so to Mickelson rather than Tiger, and whether that's because there's more of them and there's more competition amongst each other than Tiger ever had, I don't know. I mean, Tiger always had Mickelson. He had Els for part of it. He had some guys in there, Vijay Singh for part of it. These guys all have each other. You have a guy who's always been a big favorite of mine, Jason Day. I never would have believed he would have only had one major, and he's got just the PGA from 2015. So I look at this now, and, you know, all these guys that we were wondering, you know, are any of them going to become the next Tiger? None of them look like that's going to happen, but there's any number of them, especially if you look at the 6 majors, there's any number of them that really have a chance to be the next Phil, and I think that's not damning with faint praise.
No, well, now correct me, Phil's at 7 now, right?
I thought he was at 6. Is he at?
No. I think he's at 7 now.
He's at 7. Okay.
Yeah, which puts him at...
Well, even more so, you know, then. Okay.
Yeah, it gets him away from, because it gets him to the top 12 in ties, or there's either 13 or 12 guys that have gotten to 7.
Okay.
Now, here's you're saying about the next Mickelson.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, you know, why guys kind of, a lot of, you know, your guys ended up at 5 and 4 and 5 and 6. You know, getting to 3 used to be, you know, a ridiculous accomplishment. Back then, you know, the guys, they played the tour, and it took a while to learn some of the courses and kind of get used to the tour life, the grind. And let's face it, some of these guys, they were nowhere near the condition of athletes.
Right.
I mean, going against a guy like Fred Funk versus going against a guy like Justin Rose.
Right.
I mean, night and day, these guys have done, some of them have done college playing. These guys have also been competing in these World Junior Tours, like the events in San Diego, Augusta. I mean, some of these junior events and then some of these college events, I mean, there's 10 or 20 future pros in some of them.
Yeah.
So I think that mentally, the stakes are raised in the junior golf world. 2, they're better athletes because golf's a little cooler now, and you're getting more athletes attracted to it, which is quite obvious on tour. And then 3, the strength and conditioning is way better. Guys are, so obviously you're seeing the bigger ball speeds, etc. Now, what you're going to see, in my opinion, is not necessarily Phil's. I mean, he's going to be a historical outlier. You could tell modern golf in the last 30, 40 years, obviously without Phil. What I think you're going to find is a lot of guys with more of a Seti Ballesteros career arc. Now, people forget, Ballesteros exploded onto the scene, I believe, when he was 19. So
right.
I think he did a top 5 in the British Open, and people kind of fell in love with him over and here for his little style. His, guy, he was always making recovery shots that people couldn't believe. And then he got immediately on the Ryder Cup team and used that. He did win 5 majors, though. And
yes.
I think he did that all before age 25 or 27. 86 was his last really good look, I think, on the United States tournaments. I think he had won more, but he had 5 in a short amount of time.
Right.
And then, he just, like a lot of people, he just couldn't make every putt and chip all place. I think that, the competition started to improve, especially back when, some of your elite Europeans had moved over to America, kind of raised the caliber of world golf. But Ballesteros got 5, then he was done. And then he hung around for a while. But people forget that he ripped off 5 pretty quickly.
Right.
Who does that remind you of? Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Koepka. I think those guys, because of how much they're putting mileage on their bodies, I kind of think you only get so many swings before the back starts to break down, no matter how much and good you take care of yourselves. I think these guys are putting on some bulk. I just think that Phil has always been kind of a little curious outlier because he's had that long swing, but it's always been smooth,
Yeah.
It's always been very fluid, where you take a guy like Jason Day. There's a lot of torque on that. I mean, it just hurts your back looking at it.
Right.
Rory, now he's getting older. He's not that flexible teenager anymore. Now, he's still playing really well. I mean, he's been stuck on 4 for quite some time, but I still think he's got a couple. You saw Spieth go. I mean, where did he end up in the top world rankings? I mean, Phil had dropped to 115.
Yeah.
Did Spieth even get? I mean, he had to be around there. But, I mean, that was in the peak of his career. Phil, he was in the top 50 there for, 20 years. Never dropped out of the top 50, 23 years.
Yeah.
But, Spieth has already had one run where he, completely fell off the face of the earth. So I think you're going to see a lot more guys come on the scene, completely prepared to play the modern game, completely mentally prepared. They know the courses. They've already been sharpened up on the competition, and they're a little more fearless. I mean, this group, they're all shooting for pins the way Tiger did. They're not. The pro game is almost built a little bit more for your complete sharks, guys that are just complete animals and want to go out there and make a lot of birdies. So you're going to see, in my opinion, I think it'll be quite common to see guys rip off 3, 4, 5, get there, and then they're going to cool off. And then whether they can get back into form and get to 5, 6, 7, 8, that's going to be another story. There's only going to be so many of them. The pool of talent is only getting bigger. The stress of winning is only becoming harder, which means guys are going to push their bodies further and further. So I think it's just going to be a lot of more quick ascension, and then we'll see. Let's take Koepka. I mean, he's won 4. I mean, he's not a golf enthusiast. He's a self-admitted.
Right.
It's a career for him, not that. Now, that said, he's very disciplined. Then maybe that's the way you need to do it, where he's not going to burn out. You could easily see a guy like Spieth or Thomas, go to the burnout. Those guys were not huge. Neither was McIlroy. Those are guys that have put on the bulk, when, no offense, the old guys that used to play a long time were wiry.
Right.
So, Davis Love held up quite a long time because he was wiry and never really did the bulk up. Now, mind you, he was 6'2", 6'3".
Right, he had leverage.
Had, the swing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't know that we're going to see a lot of guys still get to 6, 7, and 8. I think my guess is that more guys get to 4 quickly, and then they're going to get mud in the tires, and they're going to spin for a while. The odds are, though, that if you get enough guys to 3, 4, 5, 1 or 2 of them is going to break through. Every generation has a couple guys.
Yeah.
So it'll just be who it is. DeChambeau seems more of the golf nerd that I think he's maybe better equipped between the years. And you also have a maniac like Patrick Reed, who his A game still is up there, and he's always proven that he can do it for 4 rounds. So it's nice to see these guys are workout fanatics, but Phil had a fluid swing, and basically you know, he did karate. He did a lot of core stuff. Even when he was a little flabby, he was still doing stuff like throwing baseballs and weird stuff. He was kind of not cut out of stone, but he was still doing things to keep his athleticism. And I hate to say that these guys are doing the wrong thing by, like, you know, you see Justin Spieth in the gym doing that thing with the ropes where he throws a rope up and down like he's in a Gatorade commercial. I'm sure that gets his, you know, strength. Is that going to allow you to play and win majors at 50? Probably not. That said, that's clearly not their goal, nor should it be.
Yeah, clearly, I think that's the case. And, when you look at these guys, and again, I think that's the separator for the guys that get the 6 and 7 majors and get to that next level, because Mickelson, you look at the distance career-wise between the 2021 PGA Championship and whenever his first one was back in the early 2000s. The guys at that level, Watson and Gary Player, I'm not even talking the big guys, the Mount Rushmore guys, but just those three in particular, you get to that point by winning those over a long period of time. The guys who are stuck at like 3 or 4 right now, they were in relatively quick periods of time. So we're seeing these guys where, you know, they'll rotate going through periods of dominance, and it sort of kind of trades off between them. And then somebody we didn't even really talk much about is Dustin Johnson, and that's another guy. I know Bob Glassman in our Golf League FDH Lounge dignitary, Bob Glassman, complaining about DJ not holding up this year, and I said it's the curse of the number 1 pick. I said I had Koepka last year, and he was broken down the whole year. I said that's what happens, but you get these guys who, you know, because of the workouts or, you know, like you said, maybe the torque and violence of the swings kind of tend to get themselves screwed up. And in the case of DeChambeau, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. You were saying something about his ears. Is it just me, or are they getting a little further apart Barry Bonds style when I look at him? Just saying.
Well, it was funny. I saw a great meme on the internet, and it was like the Arnold Schwarzenegger Carl Weathers hand pick, and it was like people siding with Koepka, people siding with DeChambeau, and then it had hating Patrick Reed as the commonality. Now, that said, I've always been a big Reed defender here.
Yes.
But it's kind of funny. Those two guys, it's so weird. It's so beneath them that they are in this little bit. Koepka, well, we got to say this. Koepka, I know he finished second. He really had the opportunity to take that one. I mean,
sure.
He's playing a 50-year-old guy. The first hole, they do a 2-shot swing, birdie bogey.
Yeah.
And Koepka's in the lead, and then he gives it right back. I think Koepka hit a double on 2, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
That used to be Phil's game. Phil played that whole week. I don't think he had any doubles. And Phil's big number has never really been the issue. Has never been the birdies. It's keeping the big numbers off of the card.
Right.
And there's a thing. I have a running joke with one of my friends, and I say every year, like, somebody will make a triple bogey on like Saturday of the Masters, and they flash up a graphic like no player has won with a triple bogey on their card since Craig Stadler in 1981 or something like that. They show it every year. But it's true, these guys you don't win majors with triples on your card, and doubles is even like extremely rare.
Yeah.
So it's like for a long time, there were no 3 putts. I think there was like a 10-year string where there was no 3 putts by a Masters winner.
Mm-hmm.
And Phil had just been prone to the big number.
Yeah.
So for him to avoid the big number, and Koepka making the big number on Sunday, it was just amazing. Like, if Kiowa, you needed to hit this ball straight or at least under control on a string, and there's plenty of places to make a big number. This
right.
wasn't, Kapalua, with 50-yard fairways. This is, a somewhat tighter course. And as you know, playing in the wind, once you miss hit it, it goes crazy. And kind of getting back to Watson, he was hitting it on a string for 72 holes. So it was just dominant golf. It was just so amazing that it never got loose over any of that time when, it wouldn't have taken much to get off the rails there at Kiowa.
Yeah, and it was really interesting. And even Phil hit a couple, into the crowd on Sunday. And, there were some ones that kind of got away, but nothing ever really ended up burying him that much. He was hitting good recovery shots. And, as far as, Koepka and DeChambeau and that whole kind of a thing there, I did see a kind of cynical thing today of where I guess the PGA they're going to be paying out bonuses to players based on popularity rankings, which is actually not a bad thing for a sport to do, because those are the guys that could kind of bring in the money, Tiger style. And at a case now where the way we're talking about this, it does seem like, you've got more or less a group of about 10 great players where there's going to be a certain level of parity. There's going to be a very good chance that one of those approximately 10 guys is going to win any of these majors. Of course, somebody else can sneak in, like old man Phil this time, or arguably Matsuyama at the Masters, because I don't think I would have put him on that level anyways, because he'd never won a major, but now he has. But in order to be able to stand out, right, nobody's going to be the next Tiger. Is anybody even going to be the next Phil as far as recognition to the general public and everything like that? In a very, very cynical sense, pro wrestling style here, Koepka and DeChambeau are elevating their profiles with the lowest common denominator as far as their feud.
Yeah. It's Dale Earnhardt and Jeff Gordon. They're one of the great all-time rivalries. I'm not a huge motorsports guy.
Me neither.
But I know I fall in love with the anti-heroes, as the Patrick Reed mention goes. But I always liked Jeff Gordon because once I read something about him and how he was just kind of like this, he was kind of like a phenom and a prodigy. And I kind of just was like, oh, this guy's cool. And then when I lived in California, I was like, okay, I'm going to root for the California guy here. And of course, that was not popular with, the Southeast NASCAR roots.
Sure.
So, but him and Dale Jr., they knew they were actually terrific friends, but you would have never gotten that out of either of their mouths. They knew that having the Dark Knight and the White Knight sold tickets, sold money, It was no fluke that those two guys had almost all of their promotional deals with the same companies.
Yeah.
They knew that, it's very simple. Rick, we're both writers, and
Yep.
There's one of the great staples for writing that says your hero can only be as good as your protagonist is bad.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tiger is the anomaly, but it's exciting when you have Tiger and Phil. So like when Phil wins 6 majors and is more popular, arguably among the hardcore golf crowd than Tiger,
Mm-hmm.
that makes it more exciting when Tiger gets his game back going, or makes it more interesting when Tiger's not there and Phil's. It stirs the pot. So we'll see where this goes with Koepka and DeChambeau. Koepka's a weird case because he should be like the golf hero. I believe he went to Clemson, and there was these stories that he'd get them to leave the range lights on. And he liked it because it was hot. He would like to work out at night, and he would get them just to leave the range lights on, and he could be out there alone for hours and hours. So he was, really more in that self-made mode. He always knew he wanted to be a pro golfer, dug it out of the dirt the old-fashioned way and got there. He should be more popular, but then he also comes out with, I'm not a huge golf historian. I'm not a nerd about golf. It's just a thing I do. That makes it hard for, you're never going to get that sort of, like that crowd phenomenon that
Right.
Tiger has and Phil have, that people want to be a part of that win. I mean, look at that. By the way, it was classic, the scene at 18 and how it got away from him. What's funny is Kiowa Island on that. I know you mentioned this in the intro. Kiowa Island is a lot like Whistling Straits.
Yeah.
And that was made initially just as a crazy tough course. They're on the ocean. There were some ideas that they could get, some events there, but it's not made for like watching in the crowd. It's not that kind of a course. Like Whistling Straight, I once heard described as a broken ankle waiting to happen. And Kiowa is a lot like that. So what I was chuckling about were people that were dodging these little waste areas all week, dodging these little inclines and these little hills in the fescue where they didn't know where the heck they were walking. They finally got a chance to walk on a flat surface, and they were like, okay, this is more like it. And they all went crazy.
Yeah.
The British Open has done that forever. They just, you get about 60 cops, you put them all in black, you give them a baton and a big hat, and people, in this day and age, obviously, we have to be, take everything with a grain of salt. I'm not advocating any sort of, police state here, but you got to have some sort of control.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if anyone has this on TiVo, go watch after Phil hits his iron shot on 18. He gets that 9 iron, and some guy does like a double hand slap on the back. Right. And the guy is just immediately wiped out of the screen. Somebody had to yank him to the ground. It's tough to watch because you want to watch Phil, but if you do go back and watch it, this guy, he just got completely pounced. And of course they're not going to show that, but that would be, it would almost be great to see the greatest hits of these fans getting too close. It was just hilarious because obviously they weren't prepared for it, but it was the fans saying, "Hey, listen, this course is not made for a tour event. It's a worthy course, but it's definitely not made for spectating." If for the listeners out there, if you're going to go to an event, be very careful going to Kiowa. Also, the traffic is a complete disaster. You have to get a long bus ride in, and the buses are inconsistent. Whistling Straight, it's a beautiful venue, but again, also tape your ankles before you go so you don't, break your ankle.
And I know that I unreservedly love Whistling Straight a lot more than you do, and I'm looking forward to watching, of course, the Ryder Cup there this year, and it was supposed to be last fall, but it was put off because of the pandemic. So, looking forward to seeing that play out there. And again, and very, very interesting next several months in golf coming up here, including, and this is something that we count in our fantasy league, as we urge all of you to do as well, if you're playing fantasy golf leagues, is to count the Olympics as a fifth major. But right now, don't know if that's going to happen. And could be let's just say it'll be an incomplete field, even if it does happen, similar to 16 when it was the Zika bug or whatever. Nobody wanted to get bit by the mosquitoes, so there was a handful of pros that didn't go to that. It'll be shades of that in Japan, but worse if they do hold it.
Well, it'll be funny too because it'll be interesting. Japan's known for having notoriously tight. The land is obviously less of a supply, so the courses they're like the old colonial course. Yeah, they're tight. So it'll be kind of interesting, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of the great Japanese golfers have always had to reconfigure their game because they were always made for these accuracy contests, and then when you come over to America and the guys are just bombing it and gouging it, it's two different forms of golf. So I'll watch it. Let's face it. I'm still going to watch it if it's on. But, it was funny. Justin Rose was maybe arguably one of the great people to win the first Olympic gold medal because he took a lot of pride in it and was a really good ambassador about it. So, I'm not going to hate on the Olympic event. One thing I'll say is the PGA moving up to May. Mm-hmm. It's kind of growing on me. Yeah. I didn't like that you're taking some of the good. You're really getting dicey when you're taking some of the Midwestern classic courses out of your rotation. I'm not sure. Can you play in Chicago? Can you play in Detroit? Can you play in Northeast Ohio? Can you play, I don't think you're really playing. I mean, I guess you could try to play Whistling Straits in late May. It's not going to be like playing the PGA in, late July. So, but that gap from moving the Players Championship up, then having the Masters, now the PGA, then we're going to, segue over to the U.S. Open. I kind of like the momentum.
I do too.
Like not having this 2 months. It's like, I've never been a big Players Championship as the fifth major. I don't care how much NBC pays people to say that. Stop. So for me, that was never really I'm not going to get into that, but just cleaning up this May schedule. I'm not a fan of everything the PGA Tour does with their scheduling, but I think this was I think we're going to like it.
Yeah.
What we're going to see, though, I think you're also going to see some more. People are just going to have to accept that the rotation's going to change, the courses are going to change. What that could mean is you could get some. What they should be doing is having some regular tour events bounce around, I think, to some of these classic courses that are being looked over. I don't know how much you're going to have at Oak Hill and Oakmont and Firestone. I think you could almost have like a rotating tournament, kind of the way New York bounces the tournaments around some of the New York courses. I think the New York one bounces between that one by the Statue of Liberty, Westchester, and another course. And Tiger Woods has kind of bounced that. Well, I don't think he's in charge of it anymore, but they had the DC tournament. It bounced around a few courses. I think you could probably do it with some of these classic Midwestern courses. Because I don't think they're going to be getting the majors the way they used to. If I'm correct here, the PGA has kind of taken Bethpage Black and Whistling Straits. They're not really – a lot of these courses, they get either aligned with either the PGA or the USGA.
Right.
And both of those two have moved over to the PGA. What you're going to see is you get a Ryder Cup, then you get a PGA, then you're going to get some other stuff from the PGA. I think obviously their liking got a lot better than working with the USGA. So that's been something that's happened. If you can kind of, for the hardcore guys, go look and check out what courses the future Ryder Cups and PGAs in America have been. They're going to be courses that are going to be getting a major. So it's going to be interesting. That said, you're going to see the USGA move out to California, and which is great because you're going to get that primetime golf. I think I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for the tournament that gets the lights out. I know it's going to be weird, but I think that they're telling me that 1 week a year we couldn't have some significant event with lights. I think it's out there, but
I agree.
Talking about making, we're talking about things with I actually liked the PGA Tour you mentioned was a social media campaign where they're going to get paid. A lot of it is also engagement with sponsors. You want to keep the people that when sponsors have the lights out. That's good. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But also, if you want to keep a young audience and keep your audience growing, you're not going to do it with billboards and TV ads. People are attached to their phones and social media apps. That's fine. That's fine. But you're also telling me, though, if we're trying these things, the future of golf, we couldn't try something. You don't have to play the whole tournament night, but you could also have the last 6 groups go out, something like that. There's got to be one course, one sponsor that's willing to try it. That I'd like to see. So we'll see. We'll see where the game's going, but I like the PGA. Long story short, I like the PGA in May.
Yeah, no, I like it too. And again, to what you said, I don't make the case that it's the 5th major, but the Players might be my favorite tournament just because I go back to playing that course on my old Sega Genesis. I love Sawgrass. I love me some Sawgrass, and not just the cliche at a 17th hole, but a lot of the water holes, a lot of the par 5s where you have a chance to drive it into. And it's harder to do on the video game, suffice it to say, than it is for the modern bulked up pros to drive it into.
I sometimes am a little rough on the Players Championship, but actually that Sawgrass is a very good.
I love it.
It's a good risk reward course.
Yeah.
One thing that I always talk about when I talk about some of the courses on tour and how they hold up is I like the stretch to be birdie bogey opportunities on the last holes. And
right.
You sometimes see some of these tournaments, like let's take Riviera. Riviera's most exciting holes are like 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Right.
You get to 16, 17, and 18, and those, it's work the par. That, I don't think that's where you want golf if you were going to design the classic golf course, like hypothetically. I think you'd want, 18 birdie bogey options, or at least your last 3 holes. 3 of your last 4 should be birdie bogey options.
Totes agree.
When it's just guys grinding in for par, I think that you're just looking at one-stroke swings and you're kind of cutting out some of your drama. So it'd be nice. Sawgrass actually, though, has that 16, 17, 18. Even though they're completely flat, those are well-conceived closing holes. So the course itself, I'm okay with. It's beautiful on TV. I think it's a rite of passage to watch that and some of the other tournaments and see the guys in the sun. There's a reason those courses. It's a rite of passage for guys in the snow states. You watch those tournaments, you're like, oh man, makes you want to get the sticks out, go play around.
Right.
Actually, the only thing that really grates me with the Players Championship is how they promote the Players Championship. It's a fine course though, and actually, there's a lot to be learned from their setup, especially on the closing holes.
Right. That's true, and again, that's the beauty of this thing here with a lot of the different course layouts. But I agree with you. Anything that just lends itself to par, 16, 17, and 18 can be really anticlimactic. So
that's what we're going to have to see with the Ryder Cup.
Right.
Because Whistling Straight, those last 4 holes, I think 2 of them are long cut. I think 15 and 17, they're like 2 very long par 3s that you basically have to cut the ball. Either you're going to go into a hillside, you're going to hit the green, or you're going to go in the water. And most guys just say, hey, they're going to miss on, they're going to bail out on the hillside, or if they're not going to go in the water unless it's just like a shank. So that said, though, your Ryder Cup, not all the matches come down to 18.
Right.
I guess the Ryder Cup, it might be a little more palatable because let's face it, you see a guy put one in the water, that'd be kind of a money shot to see a guy really. It would be like the guy wiping down in the wide world of sports, like on the skis. I'll rubberneck at a good car accident. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Especially if it's the European. No offense, guys.
Yeah.
If it's one of the Euros putting it in the drain, I think that would be, it would be a memorable image. Not necessarily, as cool as somebody making a completely memorable shot.
As long as it's not that greaseball Tommy Fleetwood, you love him.
Hey, he's a great fantasy value. I'll never apologize for that. You shouldn't either, Ricky.
Oh, this is so great whenever we get a chance to bring our inside league jokes onto the show here. That always adds character to it, but it is always a segment with character and a character in particular when we have Mr. Flatstick Tom Denk on. So, Tom, for the discussion about Phil Mickelson winning here and the present state of the tour and where it's at, thank you so much for another great one, my friend.
Oh, no, thanks. I hopefully, if the next couple majors live up to this, it'll be a great year for calendar golf. So,
absolutely.
Thanks much, and God bless. Thanks.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. I look forward to revisiting with you here as events materialize. Our friend Tom Denk, FDH Lounge Golf Editor Mr. Flatstick. Thank you so much, Tom, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in to FDH Lounge, mini episode 1349.